Good evening, chaps. How the devil are you? It's Friday, it's here again, and as you can probably tell, I'm suffering. I've got a miserable, stinking, lousy, minging, snotty head cold, and here we go. Cheers, everyone. Hence the old Highland medicine. Oh, dear me. I've had it about a week now, and every time I think I've got it on the run, it comes back with a vengeance. Been up since 3:30 this morning, hacking and coughing and snotting and spluttering. Oh, deep joy. But here now with this happy band of lads and lasses to take my mind off it for a while. So, how is everyone? Let's have a look in the chat, see who is in and who was first in, and so on and so forth. We got Wilson Jones first in. Yes, I call it the Whisky o'clock stream, didn't I? And he's going, bad monkey see, bad monkey do. Are you on the hard stuff as well, Wilson? Terry. Then we got Terry Day and Vincent Brennan and Balder. There's Ian Clark and Johnny Random. There's Dave Lewis and Mark Kerno and Johnny H. Michael Palmer is there. And so is Steve Entwistle and Anton, and there's Derek Clacton, wishing everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. Just had a Guinness to celebrate, had to be done. See, I don't really do Paddy's Day, St. Patrick's Day, on the grounds that I'm not Irish. You know, it's just this seems to be a very recent thing where it just became a thing that everybody did. It's I think it's got something to do with the marketing department at Guinness, to be honest with you. And then we've got Grandpa Joe and Derek Clacton and Michael Bellivaux. Cal B and the Rocco Cat is in, and so is PFY Guitars and Thomas Mulvaney. We've got Michael Bellivaux there and Ben Allmark. Dr. Gomez 1, Jeff C, Peter Nicholson, and Craig Stamen are all in. There's Peter Collins and Gordo Canuck. And who else have we got? Let's scroll down. James Hunt. And scrolling a bit further, I see we've got Reeled In 58. And there's Dave Fiendish, Phil, and who else we got? Stratboy 999, John Ross. Lawrence Hastings is there, and scrolling down, I see so is Watches and Guitars and Rent to Kill. David Evans is in, and looks like you've had some rather worrying news there, mate. Well, our thoughts are with you. Please pass all of our best wishes on to your other half, and fingers crossed that something positive can come out of it, mate. Fingers crossed for your missus there. Then we've got Paul Trainer and Robert Galbraith, and I see we've got Chip Young and Theme Tunes and David James, Brad Matthews, 60s man who's got a new guitar, the PRS DGT SE. Is that this Sunburst one I'm gathering? I must admit I'm gassing for the gold top version of that at the moment, but I'm just going to wait until they start appearing on the used market, I think. Then there's Edwin Toonan, and who else we got? We've got John Mack. I think I said you already, didn't I, mate? Never mind. Rexomatic is in. Greetings from Phoenix, Arizona. The Time Prophet, Stephen Hedger, Colin Falcon, and Nancy Davis is there too. So's Peter Shields, and let's scroll down a bit further. Cowas Music and Steve Muskie. The Essex Cat, Big P Morrison, Steve Cassidy Guitar, DJ W, John Channing, Timbo Roughcuts is in, so is Rick Cookson, and it's filling up rather nicely now. Pablo Hank is there, and who else have we got? We've got Graham Jones, RF, Tom G, Gear View Mirror, GRB Aquatics, David Neath, Brad Dowell, and David Cairns is there. So is Johnny Love, David Kay, and Steve Lamb is in. Nice to see you, mate. And Bill Mumbo, Dave Stevens, scrolling down throughout all of the... we've got Gary Shaw. How are you, mate? He's got a Marshall 2B12 for me. No rush, mate. No rush. It's very generous of you, but please don't go out of your way or inconvenience yourself. And that. Also, we've got Mr. Hoggett in as well, and he's having a dry evening tonight. Sorry to hear that, mate. Sorry you're having some flare-ups there, mate. You can be with us in spirit or spirits, as it were. Oh, dear me. Right. So, what on earth are we going to talk about? The bass. The new bass. It does look different, doesn't it, when it's on the wall there? It looks black. A few people were saying it didn't look like the one on the wall. But if I just grab it, you can see it is kind of like a dark brown. It's not black. And I've been using it on quite a few recordings, and it is... it's a bit like... when you don't realise how blunt a knife is until you sharpen it and you realise what a difference it makes. That is very much what it's like with that new bass. It's like, oh, this is so much easier to play. Excuse me. There'll be more of that this evening, I can promise you. Anyway, the old bass, the Stag bass, has gone. I gave it to a student who was looking to get into a little bit of home recording and hadn't got a bass. And I said, well, actually, I've got this one here. It's not very good. It's falling to bits, but you can have it if you want it. And it just got it out the door. So that's where that's gone. Oh, Paul Trainer, thank you so much, mate. Boulder saying 24 fret basses are the devil's work. I don't know. It's, as I think I said in the video, my knowledge of basses could be written on the back of a postage stamp. So trying to make that choice in the video yesterday, it was like it was like the guy who comes home with a new car and he convinces his neighbour that mine's faster than yours because mine's a red one. I just literally chose it because it had the same pickup configuration as the old one, and it was a Court, and Court have got such a good name. And you don't get a good name by selling rubbish, so that's why I bought that bass, which brings me on to the next topic, really, which is, as always, what we talk about this time of the night. What's coming up on the channel this week? Sunday, no surprises to tell you that it's the unboxing and demo of the new bass. Then on Monday, a classic solo that actually came as a request from one of my Patreon supporters, an absolute belter of a solo from Mr. Bernie Marsden. So that tells you what band it's from, and what band we're talking about, and what era of that band. So a classic Whitesnake solo there. I haven't got the mental agility this evening to start thinking up cryptic clues, so I'll tell you, it's the Bernie Marsden solo from Don't Break My Heart Again. Then Tuesday, it is another top 5 list, and continuing in the same vein as we were talking about this week, where it was when I did the 5 best, my personal favourite 5 blues rock albums from the 70s. This week it's kind of the best of everything that isn't really where you can't sort of categorize it as this kind of rock or that kind of rock. It's just the 5 best mainstream rock albums, I suppose you'd call them, of the 70s. So there's some good ones on that list, I can promise you. Then on Wednesday, you'll notice that since I got the new acoustic guitar, this lovely Harley Benton, whatever it is, the Harley Benton with the Fishman kind of system in it, you will notice that the old acoustic, the old Harley Benton, is still on the wall behind me there. That's because I'm putting it to a slightly different use. And there's a message there about the amp one. I'll come back to that. So on Wednesday, you're going to find out what use I'm putting the old acoustic to, and then on Thursday, it's the turn of this again. Remember, I got one of these, and I was sort of impressed, and then meh, really. The old pod. Well, we're giving it a second chance, but we're pairing it up with some modern impulse responses to see how it fares with a little bit more kind of modern speaker simulation. So that is what is coming up on the channel this week. Let's scroll back up and see what Martin's talking about with his Amp 1. My beloved Amp 1 has died, only purchased in December. My Mercury one is fine, but the Iridium one made a sort of farting noise and died. The retailer was great and swapped it out for me. Well, that's a heartwarming tale. Few guesses there about what's going on with the old acoustic. Slide guitar for the guitar, no. Dadgad tuning, no. That's close though. So it's well, you'll have to find out. It is something tuning related, and it's you can find out on Wednesday what that's all about. And DJ W is asking, anyone know of a cost-effective and cheap way of repairing gold plating on guitar hardware? Well, that brings back a memory for me, actually, because there was a guy who was on Dragon's Den years ago, where he had this, he'd come up with this, for international viewers, it's called Shark Tank in the USA, I believe. Basically, he'd come up with this way of putting gold plating on absolutely any surface, cheaply and effectively. And I can't remember what his company was called, and I can't remember what he was called. But if you do a Google search for Dragon's Den gold plating, and he had it was one of those where all four investors wanted to kind of jump on board with him. So I should imagine the company is still going. There are ways that you can do it, basically, and and it was apparently, they showed he'd put gold plating on anything, on wood, on plastic, on metal, and what have you. So it was pretty much a foolproof way of doing it. So just give that a bit of a Google. Dragon's Den gold plating invention. So here we go. Oh, dear me. Steve Entwistle, you have got it in one there, mate. Yes. Nashville tuning on the old Harley Benton. That is indeed what is going on. Let's just grab it and give you a little preview. In case you don't know, Nashville tuning is where you take the octave strings off a 12 string and just string them up a 6 string with them. So you get that kind of sound. And if you double track it with a regular tuned acoustic, pan them left and right, you get the most fantastic stereo 12-string sound. Steve Cassidy is saying, I remember that he was demoing on phones, etc. Yes, indeed. So that is what the old old acoustic is being used for. And again, it's just one of those things that once you've kind of put that into a mix, it just sits there so well and adds so much depth and kind of depth to it and dimension. That's the word I'm looking for. I do apologise. My head is full of snot rather than brain power tonight. And so I'm going to be having some fun with that. So let's have a look. Michael Broadhead, what are you saying there, mate? On a St. Patrick's night, I must say that my favourite Irish band ever is the Undertones. Their first album is guitar pop punk heaven. Am I alone on this? Yeah, I was. I wouldn't say I was a massive fan of the Undertones, but I think I probably, in my sort of adolescent years, probably bought one or two of their singles. I think I possibly got, My Perfect Cousin or, Teenage Kicks or something like that. And it was, they were good at what they did, weren't they? That is going to be actually featured because, as I keep saying about these top 5 lists, about this current series that I've started, the 70s was an incredibly diverse and fertile era for rock music, and I just don't think that there's ever been, because the rules hadn't really been written yet, so people were just kind of, let's try doing this, let's try rock music with flutes. Let's try rock music with bagpipes, a la AC/DC, I suppose. And I think that's what made the 70s such a great era for rock music. And people say, "Oh, yes, but you're just an old boomer who looks back to the music of his youth." I wasn't into rock music in the 70s because I was too young. I was 3 when the 70s started and 13 when the 70s ended. So, what was I listening to in the 70s? I was probably listening to, Shawaddy Waddy and the Rubettes and whole host of bands that, that we've now long since forgotten about. The Ra Band. Does anyone remember the Ra Band? And it wasn't until I started getting into me kind of mid-teens in the early 80s that I started sort of discovering all of these kind of 70s bands, really. Probably started around about 79. I started kind of paying attention to rock music when, around about Since You've Been Gone era, Rainbow, and Living After Midnight era, Judas Priest. That's when I started getting, and then as the years went on, as we went forward in time, I was kind of going back in time musically to discover 70s rock. But yeah, it is I make no bones about it, it is my favourite period of rock music. And I ain't going to say sorry for that. If that makes me an old fart, well, I'm an old fart. But that is going to be one of the top 5 lists. It's going to be the 5 best punk albums of the 70s. Because you got to love a bit of punk. It was just, I do anyway. I was having a talk once with Johnny from Budget Guitar Show, and I grew up in the 70s listening to all the old kind of 50s rock and roll revival stuff, and the similarities between between sort of raggedy ass punk and raggedy ass rock and roll are very striking, I think. Steve Jones had listened to a Chuck Berry album or two, I think, when you listen to his guitar parts. So yeah, I'm going to do a top 5 70s rock on punk at some point as well, because I've not really done much punk on the channel. I don't think I've done any. So I might have to redress that balance. Same here, Bay City Rollers. Indeed. Let's see what else has been going on in the chat while I've been blethering. We've got Nathan. The Epiphone Les Paul 59 is enjoying its new home still, John. An unsuccessful test of going to 9's meant to swap back to 10 to 46, which he is a lot happy with. Just seems right with this one. Yeah, Nathan, if as you probably gathered, is the chap who bought the Les Paul, the Epiphone Les Paul 59 that I was a brief custodian of, thanks to Balder, and he's very happy with it. Yeah, I must admit I like 10s on everything really. I'm not one of these players that on a Strat or a Telly I have to have 9s, and on a Les Paul I have to have 10s. I just put 10s on everything. And, on a Telecaster or on a Fender scale length, let's say, 10s do feel a bit stiffer and a bit more, kind of taut. But then again, I like that. It's part of the character of what makes that guitar feel the way it does. On a Les Paul, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I've ever tried. I don't think I've ever tried 9s on a Les Paul, to be honest with you. I think I've always had, I think I'd graduated up to 10s before I got my first ever Les Paul back in 89 or whenever it was. I'm just a creature of habit. You get to a certain age and you get set in your ways, don't you? Peter Shields is saying, Howard Devoto, found a member of Buzzcocks and later with my favourite band who came out with the punk era, Magazine. He was my favourite songwriter of that era. I'll tell you another great guitar player from the punk era as well, a guy called Trevor Sewell. And I always forget which of these he was in, but do you remember when it was the Revillos and then they became the Rezillos, or was it the other way around? I can't remember, but that band, he was with them, and up until, I don't know if he's still going, but certainly in recent years he had the Trevor Sewell band. Originally titled, and they were a big draw on the circuit round here. And what a fantastic band, 3-piece, and just him, guitar and vocals, a bass player and a drummer. And he used to use, do you remember when, and so this kind of gives you a bit of an era of like when I saw him, he was using, do you remember those old Roland V guitar systems, which was like a guitar, synth, and effects processor? It was about the size of a bloody suitcase on the floor. So it was kind of like late 90s, early 2000s. He was the first guy I ever saw live using one of those. He had a 70s Les Paul Deluxe, the little mini humbuckers, I believe, going into that. And as a 3-piece band, right, get this, they did a fantastic version of the old Charlie Daniels band, The Devil Went Down to Georgia. And he's playing all the fiddle parts on the guitar using this Roland V guitar system. It was absolutely mesmerizing to watch. You're thinking, where is all this music coming from, looking at just these 3 guys on stage? So there's probably YouTube stuff up. So go and check out the Trevor Sewell, Sewell, Trevor Sewell band. I should, I might have to kind of go and check some of his stuff out myself. Anyway, Adam Sam is saying, do you like John Mayer? What gauge for acoustic, says Rick Cookson? Just whatever the light gauge are on acoustic, because I am a bit of a wimp in that regard. Probably 11s on an acoustic. Do I like John Mayer? I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but I respect the guy's musical ability. He's an incredibly gifted player, and he is, an incredibly talented individual. And, from interviews I've seen with him and everything, he seems like a nice enough bloke. But his music just doesn't float my boat, I'm afraid. I know we're all supposed to kind of say, oh yes, he's fantastic. It just doesn't do it for me, I'm afraid. And I know you're either the kind of thing these days is you're either a Bonamassa or a John Mayer guy. And I got to tell you, I was, as I said in that video I did a couple of weeks ago about young guitarists, I was blown away when I first heard Joe Bonamassa as a kid in the 90s. But then I've tried getting into his kind of, his adult, kind of canon of work, and it just doesn't float me boat, because it's like, if I want somebody who's playing high octane blues rock on a Gibson Les Paul through a Marshall, well, that's what I put a Gary Moore album on for, and I remember Neville Martin actually saying a similar thing about Stevie Ray Vaughan. He was Neville Martin, editor of Guitarist magazine and Guitar Techniques and many other publications. Medicine, I assure you. I remember him saying a similar thing about Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's saying, well, yeah, if I want to listen to Hendrix or Albert King, I'll go and listen to Hendrix or an Albert King record, So I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I suppose it's a generational thing. It's who you, which player is it that kind of lights that spark under you for that style of playing, and for that sort of Hendrixy sort of thing, Hendrixy Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, for me, it's always Stevie Ray. It's I don't know, John Mayer. It just doesn't do it for me, I'm afraid. Geronimo is saying, have I converted to offsets now, or is just the T-shirt? No. This is this was, I think, a Valentine's present from the wife, and it's got a guitar on it, and she knows I like guitars, and it's what you're going to do, but you bought me a guitar with a Fender, you bought me a T-shirt with a Fender offset guitar on, I don't you just don't go there, is what I'm saying. So, but it's a nice shirt, and how about a top 5 favorite music videos episode? Oh, okay, yeah. The thing is, music videos, a lot of the bands I was into didn't really make videos, or if they did, it was just like, I remember the video for Since You've Been Gone by Rainbow, which was just them lip syncing on a kind of stage. It's videos in the early days of like the music video. It was all the kind of new romantics, weren't it? Them ones with the lopsided haircut and all, kind of tried to look like Phil Oakey from the Human League, or Adam and the Ants, and didn't really float my boat, that sort of stuff. But it's worth a thought, I suppose. I'm probably guessing there are 5 tracks that I really, really enjoy that had great videos. But then you see, you're kind of judging it on, are you judging the quality of the music, or are you judging the quality of the video? That's one to kind of have a think about, really. Graham Campbell saying there's some good early Whitesnake vids from the likes of Whistle Test that have popped up. I shall have to check those out. Top 5 album covers. It's already on the list, Vincent. It's already on the list. That's coming up, because that was part of the thing of the whole. One of the benefits, let's say, of the whole vinyl era, wasn't it? The album cover. You felt like you'd got something that was, don't get me wrong, I'm not nostalgic for vinyl. I lived through the misery of that awful medium the first time, having to blue tack a 2-pence piece onto the top of the needle to keep it in the groove, and every time you listen to your favorite album, you're wearing it out, and so most of the sort of audiophiles that all the kind of audio enthusiasts that I knew back then, they would buy an album on vinyl, play it once when they basically essentially transferred it onto a Chrome Maxell or TDK cassette, the highest possible quality cassette that you could get, and that's what they'd listen to the album on. Because it apparently, there were some people that would say it never sounds any as good after the first listen, so that's when you've got to capture it, which I wouldn't go that far. But I did have a few albums on vinyl back then that, you're listening to them and you think, all I'm hearing really here is 60% music and 40% static. Let's have a look. Peter Shields is saying, there's a lad who's blowing the socks off most folk these days called Ren. He's lyrically sensational and very intense in his subject matter. Check out the tale of Jenny and Screech. Okay, the name rings a bell. I've probably kind of scrolled past videos talking about said gentleman, but it's as I say, you get to a certain age where you're set in your ways, and I don't have a lot of leisure time for sitting and listening to music. So when I do get leisure time for sitting and listening to music, I tend to go with the devil I know. Basically, I'll stick a Steely Dan album on, or a Gary Moore, or a Thin Lizzy, or Dire Straits, or you Eric Clapton. Just look at the roster of artists that I regularly make videos about, and you'll kind of know what sort of music I listen to, really. But I shall try and kind of make some time to listen, because after all, it doesn't cost anything these days, does it? Let's see what else has been going on in the chat. A lot of talk here about album covers. Gordo Canuck is saying the video of Bonamassa at Albert Hall when Clapton came out for a number is a great video. So you have to check that out. Let's have a look. How the video fits the music and not the other way around. Yes, indeed. Shameless plug, Madness, nothing else. You got a connection with Madness there, Steve. It wouldn't surprise me, because it's you are a well-travelled gentleman, let's put it that way. So we're back up into Sledgehammer was a good video, wasn't it? That was one of those videos where another good one from round about the same time. Do you remember? I can't even remember the name of the song, but I remember the video, that Godly and Cream song where the face is changing all the time. So anyway, okay, a lot of people recommending the Ren video. I shall go and check that out. Johnny Love, what you saying there, mate? Watch the recent Nitro refinish video. I was shocked at how this most revered finish peeled off like cellophane with a bit of heat. Yeah, I used to have a student who his day job was a French polisher. And, a big part of, I wouldn't say a big part, but certainly part of his sort of daily bread and butter was refinishing guitars that had nitro finishes that were just basically turning to compost. Wedding Bells, that's the song, the Godly and Cream song, yes. Has anyone watched Randy Hansen? I think I have, Irish Stew. I think I have. I think, isn't he the guy who was very much like a Hendrix tribute act? I seem to remember that might be his name. I might be completely wide of the mark here. But I went to one of the, do you remember when Guitarist magazine used to have the little sort of mini kind of NAMM style events in London? I think they did a couple in London and a couple in Manchester. And I think there was one in Birmingham. It was one of those that I went to. It wasn't the one where I met Albert Lee and had a beer with him. Top bloke, Albert. but it was one of those kind of events, and I think it was this guy, and it was certainly Randy something. I think it was Randy Hansen, and he was, and he gave an absolutely blistering Hendrix set in one of the theatres that was a part of this venue. It's where I first saw the Hamsters as well. Now there's a blast from the past. Anyone else ever get to see the Hamsters? Snail's Pace Slim and the crew. What a great fun band they were. Yeah, that's the Hendrix guy. I thought it was. Oh, sorry, DJW. I clicked on your comment by mistake there. Give you 15 minutes of fame, or 15 seconds anyway. What I really meant to click on was Calby and the Rocco Cat. Quick question about Brasso. How much on the cloth and how long before wiping the fret off? All I ever do with Brasso on frets is just, you've got your... there's two types of Brasso. There's the stuff that's in the wadding, which is, fine. But the best one I find is the one when it comes in the liquid form in the bottle. And just get your little cloth and upend the bottle to get a dab of Brasso on the end of the cloth. And of course, you've masked off the fretboard by now, obviously. And then just kind of wipe it across the fret with the Brasso your fingertip, and then wipe across with a bit of the cloth that hasn't got Brasso on, so it's literally on and off. Just a little tiny drop on the end of it, on the end of your finger underneath the cloth. Yeah, George Wall saw the Hamsters at Bubbles in Ashington, Rodent Rock. Yeah, I saw them a few times, and good foot stomping, unpretentious, ballsy rock and roll. That's exactly what you got with the Hamsters. And and boy were they loud. Boy were they loud. Chicken Fowl is going to sort you out, John, says Timbo. Yes, as I did say that, David. Mask off the fretboard first, though. Brasso and Rosewood do not agree with each other in the slightest. Cylon Hybrid is saying, interface guitar to PC. Any advice budget-wise? Yes, get yourself onto Amazon and get yourself one of these little doozies here. You can see that is the interface I use all the time. That is a Behringer Euphoria UM2. I've got one of those on like this machine that I'm working on at the moment, and there's the UMC2 there. Exactly the same features, but this one's a bit cheaper, and it works. It has never let me down. It's absolutely bulletproof, and I think they're about 40 quid on Amazon. And and you just, I did have a Focusrite for a while, but that was the biggest pile of utter unmitigated brown smelly stuff. Let's not get any expletives on the channel. Yeah, the Focusrite thing was just awful. It just, even with the input gain turned all the way down, the just plugging in a guitar, it was just sending them the red kind of clipping light on all the time. It was an awful thing. But those little Behringers, they're cheap. They feel a bit plasticky and cheap, but that's because they are cheap. And frankly, unless you're going to be drop kicking it across the room, how much treatment do you need it to be able to take? It just sits there on a little shelf on the top of my desk, and it works. And it's never let me down. Touch wood. Time Prophet is saying, I use a Focusrite 2i2 and it works great. Although I record straight from my Podgo interface now. Well, fair enough, mate. As I often say, your mileage may vary. I've only ever used one Focusrite interface, and it didn't work. It was almost like I was trying to run kind of a line level signal into a mic level input. But last time I checked, you know, as the output of an electric guitar isn't line level. So, oh, thank you, Calby. You're a gentleman, sir. St. Patrick's Day, he means shite, indeed. Nancy Davis is saying, quick tip, instead of paying for name brand cleaning products for cleaning guitars, petrol lighter fluid does the job. I've heard that before. Isn't it? You got to make sure you get the one with naphtha in, though, haven't you? Because there's various different types, I'm told. Wilson Jones is saying, I produced 5 CDs of a friend's music with a Behringer. Yeah, people kind of dunk on the Behringer sometimes because, you know, it just uses an open source driver. You know, you don't get, you know, a specific driver for it. You just have to download ASIO for all. But, you know, where's the problem with that? You know, it's. I suspect it's what keeps the price down, that they're not having to write bespoke software for it. You know, when there's an open source one out there that just works. Let's have a look. Oh, Balder. Yes, thank you. Yes, we've heard that one before, mate. Our Time Prophet saying there's a problem with the early Focusrites, but they've sorted out the problem. I must have had an early one then, because I did get it used. Per is saying, cheers from Norway. Music videos are meaningless to me. Watching a recording of a live show, hell yeah. Spend more money on that. Spend more money, more on that, please. Although, you know, there is a paradox, I think, when we're talking about live music now. I alluded to this earlier when I was talking about, I'll check it out, was it the Ren song? I'll check that out on you know, I said it doesn't cost anything, because I've got Spotify, I've got the premium one where £10 a month and it's an all-you-can-eat buffet for music. Which, and I've spoken about this, I think, at least once or twice before. As a musician, I should be kind of resentful about that, because my music, which is up on Spotify, earns me nothing. Okay? It just doesn't. But, you know, I'm making a living out of music one way or another, so I don't really care. You know, what I do think Spotify and streaming services like that have done is because, you know, you can't be that kind of musician that can only produce the goods in the studio anymore. If you want to make a living from playing music, then you've got to get out there and you've got to get up on your hind legs in front of an audience who've paid for tickets and who are going to buy your merchandise and who are going to, you know, do all that sort of good stuff. You know, so I think it's been a massive boost sorting the wheat out from the chaff. You know, the people who are making a living in music these days, by and large, are the people who are capable of getting up and doing it live, which wasn't always the case. You know, when bands could, or artists could just kind of, you know, play at it in the studio and have a million takes to get the one version of the vocal that was in tune and so on. You know, they didn't need to go out on the tour because people would buy the records, and that's where their income stream was coming from. But nowadays, your income stream is from your touring and from playing live. So I think it's been a massively helpful thing in promoting live music, because that's now essentially where the money is for, you know, for people who want to make a living playing and writing songs and that kind of thing. But the paradox is there's more live music now than ever before. I mean, you know, when you think of the number of festivals there are now, you know, but we don't, the one type of album, and I'm going to be mentioning this in a future video, the one type of album that has pretty much become extinct these days is the live album. There's more live music going on than ever before, but, you know, how many bands these days do a live album? You know, that was always, it always seemed to be, you know, okay, you get 3 or 4 albums under your belt, you've got a big following, you do a tour, and you know, you hire the Rolling Stones mobile to come and you know, were there any other mobile recording studios? The Rolling Stones must have made an absolute mint out of that. You know, you hire the Rolling Stones mobile to come and record a bunch of your shows. You sift through the tracks, and you know, you put out maybe a single, or if you have enough material, a double live album. And it just seems a bit weird and a bit sad. Excuse me, that we don't tend to get that stuff nowadays. Anyway, excuse me, I need some medicine. Apparently, Iron Maiden still do live albums. Yeah, but they're pretty much an outlier in that respect now, I think, aren't they? How is the lovely Dougal this week? He's been a little angel today. You can still see the scar on my arm there. That was from when he was playing, gosh, a couple of weeks ago now, and he just caught me with his claw, and I said, Dougal, dear boy, you silly, silly boy. Or, you know, words to that effect. Steve Cassidy's asking what whiskey I'm on. This is just some supermarket own brand kind of paint stripper stuff, but it's not all whiskey in here. I like a drop of water with it, so it was whiskey up to about there, and then, well, whiskey up to about there really, and then topped it up with water, and that's going to keep me going through the evening, I hope. Oh, thank you, Moto. Hope you get better soon. It's a cold. It's miserable. It's unpleasant, and it is what it is. But you know, you just kind of crack on, don't you? There's nothing worse than just kind of think, oh, take it easy. You know, when you put your feet up, you know, and all you can do then is just sit there and feel miserable. I'd much rather be doing something like this, because, you know, 5 minutes before the live stream, I felt like death warmed up. But you know, I'm kind of doing something. I'm interacting, and I'm having a conversation, and I'm you know, it's taken me mind off it basically, which is it's why I prefer to crack on. Nancy Davis, yeah. Double live albums with side 3 devoted to a drum solo. Those were the days. Indeed they were. Indeed they were. Ian Clark is he's saying, what you're saying there? Sorry, my vision just went blurry then just for a second. I can't think why. Frank Zappa live in New York, one of my live favourites. Yeah, good one, mate. Let's have a look. Cal Bean saying, "Don't crack on if it's lasted 2 weeks." It is hanging about. I'll give you that, but you know, it's just a cold. You know, I don't wish to harp on about this, but you know, I had a little bit of a health scare just over a year ago. You know, Mr. Cancer came for a visit, and that didn't slow me down. So I'm buggered if a little bit of a bloody sniffly cold is going to stop me in my tracks. Wishbone Ash live date superb. I don't think I've got that anymore. I don't think I've got that. I haven't listened to any Wishbone Ash in a while, actually. Steve Cassidy is saying, John, if I were to guess your height, would I be right at 6'1"? No, you wouldn't, mate. No, you wouldn't. You'd be about 6 inches short of the mark, to be honest with you. Or put another way, I am 5'19". Mark Kerno, you are a gentleman, sir. You are a gentleman and a scholar. Too much water in your medicine. Proper northern boy attitude, says Peter Shields. Well, you know, it's just, it's as I say, if you if you've got nothing to occupy your mind with, all that occupies your mind is the fact that you're feeling, kind of a bit snuffly and kind of achy and what have you. But this will sort me out. It's never let me down before. In the words of Winston Churchill, when his doctor told him to stop drinking so much, he said, alcohol, he said, I've taken a great deal more from alcohol than it has ever taken from me. Let's have a look. I'm with you on that one, Irish Stew. AC/DC, If You Want Blood, fantastic album. Yes, indeed. Live and Dangerous, probably the best live album of all time. Yeah, I mean, there is some debate about how live that album is, isn't there? Tony Visconti, I think, wasn't it? Tony Visconti, who produced it, has gone on record as saying that, about 75% of it is retouched in the studio. It has to be said that both Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson have vociferously, there's a good word for a Friday evening, vociferously disputed that claim. But yeah, it's certainly up there with the best. I mean, Frampton Comes Alive, there's another great one. And what else would be another great live album from the 70s? Live in the Air Age by Bebop Deluxe, again a fan. And the thing about that album is, if you're not a fan of Bebop Deluxe, or you're not aware of them and you're not sure what they're about, but you're curious, go and get Live in the Air Age. It's got all of their kind of big, probably the definitive versions of all of their best tunes on it. It's, when they were thinking about the set list to put on the album, they really kind of just hit it perfectly. It's just fantastic live album. And Supertramp Live in Paris. Yes, I've got that. Allman Brothers Live at Fillmore East, another great live album. Status Quo Live. Yeah. My favourite live Quo album was the Live at the NEC. Which is, again, just the definitive versions of Caroline, Rocking All Over the World, Bye Bye Johnny, fantastic stuff. The only thing you should have in your whiskey is your top lip. Yes, indeed. Yeah, Whitesnake, Live in the Heart of the City, Moody and Marsden rocking. There's a lot of albums, I will tell you, because I sort of made a bit of a bind for myself because I'm keeping this strictly these top fives at the moment. I'm keeping it strictly to albums that came out in the 70s, and there's a lot of them like 1980 or just over the border into 81. Like the blues rock album that I wanted to include on the list was Whitesnake, Ready and Willing, but that came out in 80, so I couldn't have that one on the list. So there you go. Never mind. Oh, I mean, so many great suggestions here for great 70s live albums. Who Live at Leeds. Rory Gallagher Live in Europe. Yeah, I've got to tell you, I prefer Irish Tour. That said, my favourite Rory live album is Stage Struck, but again, that was just over the kind of over the border into the 80s. Let's have a look. Metallica S&M is a great live album. I don't think I've ever heard that, but that's more your kind of more your bag, isn't it, Craig? You always were more of the heavy kind of disciple, weren't you? UFO Strangers in the Night. Just fantastic album. I mean, Schenker really on form there, isn't it? Wasn't he? And just so many great songs. Again, when they thought of like the set list for that album, or the track listing on the album rather. Again, it's just hard to imagine a better selection of songs that they could have used. Where are we? Let's see what else we've got to talk about in the dying moments of the game. Craig Peterson saying Judas Priest Unleashed in the East. Yep. Tom G saying, what's on the menu tonight? Chili cheese fries is on the menu tonight. I did a huge batch cook of chili a few weeks ago, and it's become the sort of the Friday staple now. Then don't know what we're having tomorrow. Probably some form of takeaway. And then I think I might be pushing the boat out and doing a proper Sunday lunch with all the trimmings on Sunday. We don't have it often, but when you just fancy it, nothing else will do. So what you saying there, Craig? My claim to fame is I was on the Live in the Air Age album. Well, I was in the audience when it was recorded at Leeds at the Grand Theatre. Good for you, mate. Good for you. Let's have a look. Satriani Live at the Grove 2006. Yeah, that one must have passed me by. I sort of lost interest in Satriani at some point in the 90s, really. Surfing with the Alien I thought was just incredible. Then Flying in a Blue Dream, there was a good album in there, but there was just too much filler on Flying in a Blue Dream. It had that curse of the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, when the CD became the default format for music, and bands or record companies or whoever or artists decided this format can hold 75 minutes of music, so we need to start making albums that are 75 minutes long. And like On Every Street by Dire Straits, there's another album that suffered the same thing, really. There was just too much filler on it. But then he came back with The Extremist, which was a great, tight, compact, proper album, not a bad track on that album. And then I don't know, I think Time Machine was the album he did after that, which was like a bunch of studio outtakes and stuff, and I never really got into that. And then I'd sort of moved on to other things, and I kind of lost interest in Mr. Satriani's playing, and never really kind of got back into his later output. Anyway, chaps, my voice is starting to crack a little bit, and we're almost creeping up to the wire here, so I'm going to call time and say thank you once again, everyone, for turning up. 187 of you this week, by looking at my count on screen here. Thanks for turning up and watching a fat, bald, northern, snotty, croaky lad talk absolute nonsense for an hour whilst drinking whiskey. It's been a blast. You've took me mind off me cold. Thank you so much for doing that. I'll keep on doing it till you're sick of me, but for now, time, gentlemen, please.